Golden Hands 10 Secrets Behind the Midas Touch by David Russo. What if the Midas touch isn't magic at all but a repeatable set of traits hiding in plain sight? Some people seem to turn everything they touch into gold, but look closer, and you'll see patterns. How they think, how they act, and how they respond when things go wrong. This isn't luck, it's a mindset, a system, and a way of moving through the world that compounds over time. Golden Hands 10 Secrets Behind the Midas Touch breaks down the real drivers behind consistent success so you can stop wondering who has it and start building it yourself. Introduction. Success has a way of looking like magic from the outside. We watch certain people rise again and it seems almost effortless. Their ideas catch on, their ventures grow, even their failures somehow turn into stepping stones. It's tempting to call it luck, timing, or talent, to label it something rare and unreachable. But that explanation, while comforting, misses something far more important. Because when you look closely, the so-called Midas touch isn't a mystery, it's a pattern. The individuals who consistently create value, who turn ordinary opportunities into extraordinary outcomes, are not operating on chance. They are thinking differently, acting differently, responding to pressure, uncertainty, and setbacks in ways that most people don't. What appears to be gold is often the result of unseen habits, the discipline to follow through, the courage to take calculated risks, the awareness to recognize opportunity before it becomes obvious. This book is built on a simple but powerful premise. Success leaves clues, and those clues are learnable. Golden Hands is not about overnight transformation or empty motivation. It's about understanding the deeper mechanics behind consistent success, the traits and behaviors that compound over time. You won't find superstition here. Instead, you'll find practical insights drawn from patterns observed across entrepreneurs, creators, leaders, and innovators who repeatedly find ways to win even when circumstances shift. Each chapter explores one of the 10 core traits behind the Midas touch, from vision and resilience to timing and relationships. These are not isolated skills but interconnected forces. Strength in one reinforces the others. Weakness in one can limit the whole system. Together, they form a framework for how value is created, sustained, and multiplied. You may already recognize some of these traits in yourself. Others may feel unfamiliar or even uncomfortable. That's part of the process. Growth rarely begins with certainty. It begins with awareness. It's also important to understand what this book does not promise. It does not guarantee instant success. There is no formula that eliminates effort, uncertainty, or failure. In fact, those who develop a true Midas touch often experience more setbacks than most because they take more chances, push harder, and operate closer to the edge of possibility. What sets them apart is not avoidance of failure, but their relationship with it. They recover faster, they learn deeper, they adapt sooner, and over time, those small advantages compound into something that looks, from the outside, like magic. As you move through these pages, you'll begin to see success differently, not as a distant outcome reserved for a few, but as a process shaped by decisions you can influence. You'll start to notice opportunities you may have overlooked, patterns you may have ignored, and habits that may have been quietly holding you back. The goal is not to become someone else. It's to refine the way you already think and act so that wherever you go, whatever you build, and whoever you work with, you consistently add value. Because in the end, the real secret behind the Midas touch in turning everything into gold, it's becoming the kind of person who knows how to create it. Chapter 1. Vision. Seeing opportunity before others do. Before anything becomes valuable, it is invisible. Every breakthrough idea, every thriving business, every meaningful shift begins as something most people overlook. Vision is the ability to see what isn't obvious yet, to recognize potential before it becomes proof. It's not about predicting the future with certainty. It's about noticing patterns, asking better questions, and trusting signals that others ignore. At first glance, vision can seem like a gift reserved for a select few. We point to innovators and think they possess some rare instinct the rest of us lack. But when you study how vision actually works, it becomes clear. that it's less about innate genius and more about trained perception. People with strong vision pay attention differently. They notice small changes in behavior, emerging needs, and subtle inefficiencies. Where others see noise, they see direction. Where others see risk, they see possibility. This doesn't mean they're always right, but they're willing to look earlier, think deeper, and act sooner. Consider how often opportunities are dismissed in their early stages. New ideas are labeled impractical. Shifts in trends are written off as temporary. Unproven paths are avoided because they lack validation. Vision requires the courage to sit in that uncertainty, to move forward without the reassurance that comes from consensus. But vision is not guesswork. It's built on a foundation of curiosity and pattern recognition. The more you expose yourself to different industries, ideas, and perspectives, the more raw material your mind has to connect. Over time, you begin to recognize recurring themes: what works, what fails, and why. You start to see how one change in technology, culture, or behavior can ripple outward, creating new opportunities in unexpected places. This is why curiosity is a core component of vision. People who cultivate it are constantly learning, observing, and questioning. They don't assume they already understand how the world works. Instead, they remain open, gathering insights that later become the basis for informed intuition. Another key element is timing. Seeing an opportunity too early can look the same as missing it entirely. Vision isn't just about identifying potential, it's about sensing when that potential is ready to be acted upon. This requires patience as much as boldness. It means resisting the urge to force ideas before the environment can support them, while also avoiding hesitation when the moment arrives. Importantly, vision is not limited to grand, world-changing ideas. It shows up in everyday decisions. It's recognizing a better way to solve a problem at work. It's identifying a skill that will become valuable before others invest in it. It's noticing where people are underserved and stepping in to fill the gap. These moments may seem small, but they compound. The person who consistently spots and acts on opportunity builds momentum over time. Each decision sharpens their judgment. Each success and failure refines their understanding of how value is created. Eventually, what once felt uncertain becomes instinctive. If there is a discipline to vision, it begins with slowing down enough to truly observe, to question assumptions, to look beyond what is immediately visible. It requires resisting the comfort of the obvious and developing the patience to explore what lies beneath it. You don't need to see the entire path to move forward. You only need to see what others haven't noticed yet and be willing to act on it. Because in the end, vision is not about having all the answers. It's about being one of the few who asks the right questions early, enough to change the outcome. Chapter 2. Relentless Execution, where ideas become reality. Ideas are abundant. Execution is rare. Most people have moments of inspiration, flashes of clarity, where everything seems possible. A business idea, a creative project, a new direction in life. For a brief moment, the path feels exciting and full of potential. But then reality steps in. Doubt creeps in, distractions pile up, progress slows, and eventually, the idea fades, replaced by the next spark of inspiration. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is rarely the quality of their ideas. It's what they do after the idea appears. Relentless execution is the discipline of turning intention into action and action into results. It is not glamorous. It doesn't rely on motivation or bursts of energy. Instead, it's built on consistency, focus, and a willingness to do the work long after the excitement wears off. People with this trait understand a simple truth. Progress compounds through completion. They don't just start, they finish. While others jump from one idea to another, chasing novelty, they stay with the project long enough to see it through. This alone creates a massive advantage. In a world full of half-finished efforts, completion stands out. Execution also requires clarity. It's not about doing everything, it's about doing the right things. High performers break big goals into smaller, manageable steps. They prioritize what moves the needle and eliminate what doesn't. This ability to focus prevents them from being overwhelmed and keeps momentum steady. But even with clarity, the path is rarely smooth. There will be setbacks, delays, and moments where progress feels invisible. This is where most people stop. They interpret difficulty as a sign that something is wrong, that the idea isn't good enough, or the timing isn't right. In contrast, those who execute relentlessly expect resistance. They see it as part of the process, not a signal to quit. They also understand the power of iteration. Rarely does something work perfectly the first time. Instead of waiting for perfection, they take action early, learn from feedback, and refine as they go. Each attempt brings them closer to a better outcome. What looks like persistence from the outside is often a series of small adjustments made consistently over time. Another defining characteristic is ownership. People who execute well don't wait for ideal conditions. They don't rely on external validation or perfect circumstances. They take responsibility for moving things forward with whatever resources they have. This mindset eliminates excuses and replaces them with solutions. That doesn't mean they never feel doubt or fatigue. It means they act anyway. Relentless execution is not about working endlessly or burning out. It's about maintaining forward motion. Some days that motion is significant major milestones, visible progress. Other days it's small refining a detail, solving a minor problem, taking one more step. Both matter. What counts is continuity. Over time, this consistency creates something powerful: momentum. Momentum reduces friction. It builds confidence. It attracts opportunities. What once felt difficult begins to feel natural, not because the work has changed, but because the habit of execution has taken root. It's also worth noting that execution creates clarity that thinking alone cannot. Many people wait until they feel completely ready before they begin, but readiness is often a byproduct of action, not a prerequisite. By starting before everything is figured out, you gain information you could never access by staying still. In that sense, execution is a form of learning. You discover what works, what doesn't, and what needs to change, not in theory, but in practice. This feedback loop accelerates growth and sharpens decision-making in ways that planning alone never could. Ultimately, relentless execution is what transforms potential into tangible results. It's the bridge between vision and reality, between what could be and what is, because no matter how powerful an idea may be, it only becomes valuable when someone is willing to do the work to bring it to life. Chapter 3. Resilience, the hidden engine behind every comeback. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of its structure. From the outside, people with a Midas touch appear almost immune to setbacks. Their path looks smooth, their wins frequent, their progress steady. But this is an illusion created by distance. Up close, their journey tells a different story, one filled with missteps, wrong turns, and moments where things didn't go as planned. What sets them apart is not avoidance of failure, but their response to it. Resilience is the ability to absorb impact without losing direction. It's not about ignoring difficulty or pretending setbacks don't matter. It's about processing them quickly, extracting what's useful, and moving forward without unnecessary delay. Where others pause for too long or stop entirely, resilient individuals regain momentum. This speed of recovery is often what creates the appearance of constant success. When a project fails, many people internalize the outcome. They question their abilities, replay mistakes, and hesitate before trying again. Over time, this hesitation compounds. Opportunities are missed not because they lack skill, but because they've lost trust in their own capacity to act. Resilient individuals operate differently. They separate identity from outcome. A failed attempt is not a reflection of who they are. It's information about what didn't work. This distinction allows them to stay objective. Instead of asking, "Why did I fail?" in a way that leads to self-doubt, they ask, "What can this teach me?" That shift in perspective turns setbacks into tools rather than obstacles. But resilience is not just mental, it's behavioral. It shows up in the decision to try again. Even when the previous attempt didn't succeed, it's the willingness to re-engage with the same problem from a different angle. It's continuing to show up when results are uncertain and progress feels slow. This doesn't mean ignoring emotions. Disappointment, frustration, and doubt are natural responses to failure. Resilience doesn't eliminate these feelings. It prevents them from becoming permanent. It allows you to experience them without being controlled by them. Another key aspect of resilience is adaptability. Not every setback should be pushed through in the same way. Sometimes, persistence means changing strategy rather than repeating the same approach. Resilient people are flexible. They adjust their methods, refine their thinking, and remain open to new solutions. This balance between persistence and adaptability is what keeps them moving forward effectively. Over time, resilience builds confidence, not the kind that comes from constant success, but the kind that comes from knowing you can handle setbacks. This is a deeper, more stable form of confidence. It doesn't depend on everything going right. It comes from experience, from having faced difficulty before and come through it. Each recovery reinforces the belief that no single failure is final. There's also a compounding effect at play. Every time you recover quickly, you gain time, while others remain stuck analyzing, hesitating, or disengaging. You're already on your next attempt. Over weeks, months, and years, this difference becomes significant. More attempts lead to more learning. More learning leads to better decisions, and better decisions increase the likelihood of success. In this way, resilience is not just defensive, it's an advantage. It turns what could slow you down into something that accelerates you. It allows you to stay in motion while others stall. And in any long-term pursuit, staying in motion is often what matters most. If there is a skill to resilience, it lies in shortening the gap between setback and action, not ignoring what happened, but refusing to let it define what happens next. Because the people who appear to win the most are often the ones who simply don't stop. They fall, they adjust, and they continue faster than most are willing to. And over time, that difference changes everything. Chapter 4: Mastery of Relationships, the Multiplier Effect. No one truly achieves anything in isolation. Behind every major breakthrough, opportunity, or surge of progress, there are people involved: partners, collaborators, mentors, supporters, and even rivals. The image of the lone genius is compelling, but incomplete. In practice, success grows through connection. Those who appear to have the Midas touch grasp this at a deep level. They don't just accumulate contacts, they cultivate trust, and that distinction matters. A network is simply a list of names. Trust, on the other hand, is a form of currency. It requires time to build, consistency to sustain, and integrity to safeguard. Those who excel in relationships invest in this currency with intention. They are dependable. They deliver on what they promise. They communicate with clarity. Over time, people come to see working with them not as a gamble, but as an advantage. That reputation becomes a multiplier. Opportunities start to come more naturally, not because they are constantly chasing them, but because others actively want them involved. When someone consistently adds value, solves problems, and improves outcomes, they become an obvious choice for collaboration. Doors open not by luck, but by earned credibility. At the heart of this ability is a shift in mindset. Most people approach relationships thinking, "What can I gain?" Those with a Midas touch tend to ask, "What can I offer?" This doesn't mean neglecting their own goals. It means recognizing that meaningful relationships are built on mutual value. They listen carefully. They observe what others need, what they're working toward, and where they're stuck. This awareness allows them to provide support that is relevant and impactful, not generic or self-serving. Over time, a pattern forms. People begin to associate them with progress and results. Consistency is another cornerstone. Relationships aren't built in isolated moments. They are shaped through repeated interactions. Small actions: replying when you say you will, honoring commitments, showing respect, compound over time. As with execution, consistency builds momentum. Trust strengthens. Communication flows more easily. Collaboration improves. At the same time, strong relationship builders exercise discernment. Not every connection is a good fit. Not every opportunity deserves attention. Those with high relational awareness are selective about where they invest their energy. They gravitate toward people who share similar values, standards, and intentions. This alignment reduces friction and increases the likelihood of meaningful outcomes. Even so, they remain professional in challenging situations. They avoid burning bridges unnecessarily. recognizing how interconnected industries really are. Reputation travels quickly, often. How you handle difficult interactions carries more weight than how you handle easy ones. Communication also plays a critical role. Being clear, direct, and thoughtful prevents confusion and builds confidence. It demonstrates respect and shows that you value the other person's time and perspective. Those who excel in relationships aren't always the most charismatic, but they are often the most dependable communicators. They also make a point to give credit. They acknowledge contributions and recognize effort. This fosters an environment where people feel valued, and when people feel valued, they bring their best. In this way, strong relationships don't just support success, they expand it. Over time, these connections form a network defined not just by size, but by strength. And strength is what truly matters. A smaller circle of trusted, capable individuals can generate far more impact than a large group of superficial connections. Depth enables speed, honesty, and efficiency. It allows collaboration to operate at a higher level. Ultimately, mastering relationships means recognizing that success is not a solo act, it's a coordinated effort. Those who consistently create value are often the ones who elevate others along the way. They don't just advance, they bring others forward with them. In doing so, they create a cycle where trust, opportunity, and results continuously reinforce one another. Because in the end, the real power of relationships isn't just who you know, it's who is willing to build alongside you. Chapter 5. Turning weaknesses into strengths. The power of reframing. Most people try to conceal their weaknesses. They steer away from situations that might expose them, minimize them in conversation, and hope they go unnoticed. On the surface, that instinct makes sense. Weaknesses feel like liabilities, things that hold you back or undermine your credibility. But those who develop a Midas touch see them differently. They don't just cope with weaknesses, they reshape them. This isn't about denying flaws or forcing them into something artificial. It's about understanding them well enough to improve them, work around them, or reposition them so they create value. Often, what starts as a disadvantage becomes a defining strength. It begins with awareness. You can't adjust what you refuse to recognize. High performers tend to be candid with themselves. They identify their shortcomings not to judge themselves, but to gain clarity. That clarity creates options. Without it, weaknesses remain hidden, quietly influencing choices and results. Once identified, the next step is deciding how to respond. Not every weakness needs to disappear. Some can be improved through focused effort. Others can be balanced with systems, tools, or the right partnerships. And some, when viewed differently, can become advantages. For instance, someone who is naturally cautious may struggle in fast-paced settings at first, but when refined, that same caution can lead to better judgment and smarter risk management. Someone who questions everything might seem difficult until they start catching issues others overlook. The key is in how the trait is used. This is where reframing becomes powerful. Instead of asking, "How do I eliminate this weakness?" a more effective question is, "How can I use this well?" That shift unlocks new possibilities. It encourages strategic thinking and turns resistance into opportunity. Adaptability also plays a major role. Different situations demand different strengths. A trait that limits you in one context may be valuable in another. People who adapt well learn to position themselves in environments where their strengths are emphasized and their weaknesses are less exposed. Over time, they shape their roles to align with how they function best. But none of this works without ownership. Blaming external factors might feel justified, but it rarely leads anywhere productive. Those who continue to grow take responsibility for how they respond to challenges. They ask, "What can I do with this?" rather than, "Why is this happening to me?" That mindset drives progress. There's also a strong link between weaknesses and growth. Areas of difficulty often point directly to areas of potential. By engaging with them rather than avoiding them, you expand what you're capable of. This isn't about being flawless. It's about becoming more flexible, more self-aware, and better equipped to handle complexity. Over time, this builds a deeper form of resilience, not just the ability to recover, but the confidence to adapt, adjust, and improve. You stop seeing limitations as fixed obstacles and start seeing them as variables you can influence. Perhaps most importantly, it reshapes your self-perception. When you understand that weaknesses aren't permanent disadvantages, you stop letting them define you. Instead, you see them as parts of a system that can be refined and directed. That's where the real shift occurs, because having a Midas touch isn't about perfect strengths and zero flaws. It's about using what you have in a way that consistently produces value. In the end, the people who go the furthest aren't those without weaknesses. They're the ones who learn how to turn them into leverage. Chapter 6. Curiosity that never switches off. The advantage of constant learning. The world changes faster than any plan. What works today may become irrelevant tomorrow. Industries shift. Technology evolves. Behavior adapts. In that kind of environment, static knowledge has a short shelf life. The people who consistently stay ahead are not the ones who know the most at a single point in time. They're the ones who keep learning, long after others stop paying attention. Curiosity is what drives that process. It's more than casual interest. It's an active, ongoing desire to understand how things work, why they work, and what could be improved. People with a Midas touch don't wait to be taught. They seek out information. They ask questions others overlook. They explore ideas outside their immediate needs, often without knowing exactly how those ideas will be useful. At first, this can seem inefficient. Why spend time learning something that doesn't have an immediate payoff? Because curiosity compounds. Information that appears unrelated in the moment often becomes valuable later. A concept from one field connects with a problem in another. A random insight sparks a new direction. Over time, this accumulation of knowledge creates a unique advantage, the ability to see connections where others see separation. This is where breakthrough thinking often comes from. Instead of relying on a single perspective, curious individuals draw from a wide range of inputs. They combine ideas, adapt approaches, and challenge assumptions. This flexibility allows them to move beyond conventional solutions and find opportunities that are not immediately obvious. But curiosity is not just about gathering information. It's about how you engage with it. Passive consumption has limits. Scrolling, skimming, and collecting facts without reflection rarely leads to meaningful insight. Active curiosity, on the other hand, involves questioning what you encounter. Why does this work? What are the underlying principles? How could this apply somewhere else? These questions deepen understanding. They also sharpen judgment. When you take the time to explore ideas more thoroughly, you become better at distinguishing what matters from what doesn't. You're less likely to be influenced by surface-level trends and more capable of identifying lasting value. Another important aspect of curiosity is humility. To remain curious, you have to accept that you don't have all the answers. This openness allows you to learn from a wide range of sources, people with different experiences, industries you're unfamiliar with, perspectives that challenge your own. Instead of defending what you already know, you expand it. This mindset keeps you adaptable. As new information emerges, you're not forced to cling to outdated assumptions. You adjust, you refine, you evolve. In a rapidly changing environment, this ability is not optional, it's essential. Curiosity also fuels improvement. When something doesn't work, a curious person doesn't stop at the outcome. They investigate it. They look for patterns, causes, and alternatives. This leads to better decisions over time. Instead of repeating the same mistakes, they learn from them, often extracting more value from failure than from success. Importantly, curiosity can be cultivated. It starts with paying closer attention to the world around you, noticing details, asking simple questions, following ideas a little further than you normally would. Over time, these small habits build into a mindset that is naturally inquisitive, and once that mindset takes hold, it becomes self-sustaining. The more you learn, the more connections you see. The more connections you see, the more interesting things become. This creates a loop where curiosity feeds itself, continuously expanding your understanding and your ability to act on it. In the end, curiosity is not just about knowledge. It's about staying in motion mentally. It's about refusing to settle into fixed thinking. It's about remaining open enough to see what others miss and adaptable enough to use it. Because the people who consistently create value aren't just working harder, they're learning faster and never really stopping. Chapter 7. Strong Inner Narrative, the story that shapes reality. Before any result becomes visible in the world, it exists in the mind. Every decision you make is filtered through a quiet, ongoing story you tell yourself about who you are, what you're capable of, and what you expect to happen next. This internal narrative operates in the background, often unnoticed, yet it influences everything. The risks you take, the effort you apply, and the opportunities you believe are available to you. People with a Midas touch tend to have one thing in common: their inner narrative works for them, not against them. This doesn't mean they are blindly optimistic or disconnected from reality. It means they have developed a way of thinking that supports action, resilience, and growth. When they face uncertainty, their default response is not, "This won't work," but rather, "Let's see how this could work." That subtle difference changes behavior in powerful ways. Your inner narrative sets your baseline. If you believe success is unlikely, you hesitate. You second-guess decisions. You avoid risks that could move you forward. Even when opportunities appear, you may not fully engage with them. On the other hand, if you believe progress is possible, you approach situations with a different level of energy and intent. You prepare more thoroughly. You persist longer. You recover faster. In this way, belief becomes behavior and behavior produces results. Over time, those results reinforce the original narrative, creating a feedback loop. A limiting story leads to cautious action, which leads to smaller outcomes, which then confirms the story. A constructive narrative leads to bolder action, stronger outcomes, and increasing confidence. The key is recognizing that this story is not fixed. It is shaped by experience, but also by interpretation. Two people can face the same setback and come away with completely different conclusions. One may see it as proof they're not capable. The other may see it as part of the process. The event is the same, the meaning is not. That meaning is where your power lies. Developing a strong inner narrative starts with awareness. You begin to notice the patterns in your thinking. How do you respond to challenges? What assumptions do you make about your own ability? Where do you hesitate? And what story is driving that hesitation? Once you see it, you can begin to reshape it. This is not about repeating empty affirmations or ignoring reality. It's about choosing interpretations that are both accurate and useful. Instead of framing a mistake as failure, you frame it as feedback. Instead of viewing a gap in skill as a limitation, you see it as an area for growth. These shifts are subtle, but they change how you move forward. Language matters here. The words you use internally influence your perception. Saying "I can't do this" closes the door. Saying "I don't know how to do this yet" keeps it open. That single word "yet" introduces possibility. It signals that the situation is not permanent, and that effort can change the outcome. Another important element is evidence. A strong inner narrative is not built on wishful thinking. It's reinforced by action. Each time you follow through, solve a problem, or push past resistance, you create proof. These small wins accumulate, gradually reshaping how you see yourself. Confidence becomes grounded, not assumed. This process also requires consistency. Your narrative is influenced by what you repeatedly focus on. If you constantly revisit past failures, you strengthen doubt. If you track progress, even in small increments, you reinforce capability. Attention directs belief. Over time, this internal alignment becomes a powerful asset. You spend less energy battling hesitation and more energy taking action. Decisions become clearer. Momentum builds more naturally. What once felt uncertain begins to feel manageable, not because circumstances have changed, but because your interpretation of them has. Ultimately, the Midas touch is not just about what you do, it's about how you think while you're doing it, because the story you tell yourself doesn't just describe your reality, it helps create it. Chapter 8. Smart Risk-Taking, Knowing When to Leap and When to Wait. Every meaningful outcome involves risk, whether it's starting a business, changing careers, investing time in a new skill, or committing to a long-term goal. Uncertainty is always part of the equation. There are no guarantees, only probabilities, trade-offs, and decisions made with incomplete information. People who appear to have a Midas touch are not risk-free. In fact, They take risks more often than most. The difference is not the presence of risk, but the quality of how they manage it. Smart risk-taking is not impulsive. It is deliberate. It involves understanding what is at stake, what is likely, and what can be controlled, rather than acting on emotion alone. These individuals evaluate direction, timing, and downside. They don't eliminate uncertainty that's impossible, but they reduce unnecessary exposure to it. One of the most important distinctions is between reckless risk and calculated risk. Reckless risk ignores consequences. It is driven by urgency, excitement, or fear of missing out. It often leads to unstable outcomes because it lacks preparation. Calculated risk, on the other hand, is informed. It comes from observation, learning, and pattern recognition. It is not safer in the absolute sense, but it is smarter in its structure. Those who master this skill don't avoid failure. They price it in. They understand that not every decision will work out, but each one can still be worthwhile if the upside outweighs the downside. This shift in thinking changes how they evaluate opportunities. Instead of asking, "What if this fails?" they also ask, "What if this succeeds and how much does that matter?" This dual perspective creates balance. Another key element is timing. A good idea executed too early can fail. The same idea, executed too late, can miss its window. Smart risk-takers pay attention to context, market conditions, readiness, resources, and momentum. They don't just ask what to do, they ask when to do it. This patience is often misunderstood as hesitation, but it is actually discipline. It takes restraint to wait for the right conditions, especially when excitement pushes for immediate action. But timing often determines whether a risk becomes an opportunity or a setback. Preparation also plays a central role. What looks like boldness from the outside is often built on quiet groundwork before taking a significant risk. These individuals reduce uncertainty wherever possible. They gather information, test assumptions, and build small proofs of concept. By the time they commit, they are not acting blindly, they are acting with informed confidence. Importantly, smart risk-takers also manage their downside. They don't bet everything on a single outcome unless they understand the full implications. They structure decisions in a way that limits catastrophic loss while preserving upside potential. This allows them to stay in the game even when things don't go as planned, because survival is a strategy. If you can remain active after a failure, you gain the ability to try again, and repeated attempts increase the probability of success over time. In this sense, managing risk is not about avoiding loss, it's about ensuring continuity. Another often overlooked aspect is emotional regulation. Risk naturally triggers fear and excitement. Both can distort judgment. Fear can prevent action even when the opportunity is strong. Excitement can push action even when the logic is weak. Smart decision-makers learn to observe these emotions without being controlled by them. They pause long enough to separate feeling from analysis. Over time, this builds a kind of internal stability. Decisions become less reactive and more intentional. Confidence grows not from always being right, but from knowing that even when outcomes are uncertain, the process behind the decision is sound. Ultimately, smart risk-taking is not about gambling on big outcomes. It's about consistently making well-structured decisions in uncertain environments. It's about stacking favorable odds over time rather than chasing isolated wins. Because the people who move furthest are not those who avoid risk. They are the ones who learn how to take it intelligently and repeatedly turn uncertainty into opportunity. Chapter 9. Talent for Timing. The Discipline of the Right Moment. Timing is one of the least visible forces in success and one of the most powerful. Two people can make the same decision, with the same effort, and the same level of skill, yet arrive at completely different outcomes. The difference is often not what they did, but when they did it. In many cases, timing quietly determines whether an action becomes a breakthrough or a missed opportunity. Those with a Midas touch seem to understand this instinctively, but it isn't luck. It's sensitivity to signals, momentum, and readiness. Good timing is not about predicting the future perfectly. It's about reading the present accurately. It's noticing when conditions are aligning, even before they fully reveal themselves. It's sensing when to move quickly and when to hold back. It's understanding that action taken too early can be wasted effort, while action taken too late can be irrelevant entirely. Most people misjudge timing in one of two ways. Some rush in too early, driven by excitement or fear of missing out. They act before the environment is ready to support their idea. Others wait too long, seeking certainty that never fully arrives. By the time they feel ready, the opportunity has already shifted. Mastering timing means learning to operate between those extremes. It requires patience without passivity. You are not waiting aimlessly, you are observing, preparing, and positioning yourself so that when the moment arrives, you can move decisively. This kind of patience is active. It is alert, not idle. One of the key skills behind timing is awareness of momentum. Momentum is often subtle at first. A trend begins to grow. Interest starts to build. Conditions begin to shift. Many overlook these early signals because they are not yet obvious. But those who pay attention can recognize when something is beginning to accelerate. Acting during that early acceleration phase often creates disproportionate results. Equally important is knowing when momentum is fading. Just as opportunities grow, they also decline. Markets saturate, attention shifts, energy dissipates. Being able to step back at the right moment before decline becomes obvious can be just as valuable as entering early. Timing is not only about entry, but also about exit. Another critical element is preparation. Good timing is only useful if you are ready when it arrives. Many opportunities are lost not because they were unseen, but because the individual was not equipped to act on them. Skills were not developed. Systems were not in place. Confidence was not built. As a result, the moment passes without action. This is why preparation and timing are inseparable. You prepare so that when the window opens, hesitation is minimized. You don't need to figure everything out in real time. You only need to execute what you've already made ready. There is also a psychological aspect to timing, restraint. In a world that rewards speed and constant activity, not acting can feel uncomfortable. But restraint is not inaction, it is strategic waiting. It is the discipline to avoid forcing outcomes that are not yet aligned. This restraint prevents wasted effort and preserves energy for higher impact moments. Over time, experience sharpens this sense. You begin to recognize patterns. You notice how situations evolve. You learn how long certain cycles tend to last. You develop intuition not as guesswork, but as pattern-based judgment built from repeated exposure and reflection. And importantly, you learn that timing is often less about perfection and more about range. There is usually not a single perfect moment, but a window of opportunity. Those who move within that window, rather than waiting for an exact point, tend to perform better consistently. Flexibility within timing is often more valuable than precision. Ultimately, timing is what turns effort into impact. Without it, even strong ideas can fall flat. With it, modest actions can produce outsized results. It is the invisible multiplier that determines whether energy is wasted or amplified. Because in the end, success is rarely just about what you do. It's about when you choose to do it, and whether you recognize the moment before it passes. Chapter 10. Adding Value Everywhere You Go. The True Midas Principle. At the center of everything in this book is a simple truth. Value is the real currency of success. Not luck, not status, not even raw talent. Those things may open doors temporarily, but they don't sustain momentum. What consistently builds a Midas touch is the ability to improve whatever you touch: situations, systems, people, and outcomes. People who operate this way don't ask, "What can I get from this?" as their primary question. Instead, they ask, "What can I improve here?" That shift in orientation changes everything. It moves them from extraction to contribution, from short-term gain to long-term influence. Adding value is not always dramatic. It doesn't require grand gestures or large-scale achievements. Often, it shows up in small, consistent actions: solving a problem before it escalates, clarifying confusion, improving efficiency, offering a useful idea, or simply making a process smoother than it was before. These contributions may seem minor in isolation, but they accumulate quickly. Over time, people begin to notice. They associate your presence with progress. Things work better when you're involved. Problems become more manageable. Conversations become more productive. This reputation becomes a form of leverage, one that naturally attracts opportunities without constant self-promotion. But adding value is not just about external impact. It also reflects internal discipline. To consistently improve situations, you must first improve yourself. That means developing skills, expanding knowledge, refining communication, and strengthening judgment. The more capable you become, the more effectively you can contribute. In this way, personal growth and value creation are directly connected. Another important aspect is awareness. You cannot add value if you are not paying attention. Many opportunities to improve something are subtle. They exist in inefficiencies, misunderstandings, overlooked details, or unmet needs. People who develop strong observational skills are able to detect these gaps quickly and respond to them. This responsiveness builds trust. When others see that you notice what needs to be done and act on it without being asked, they begin to rely on you, not because you are told to act, but because you naturally elevate the environment around you. However, adding value also requires restraint. Not every situation needs interference. True value creators understand when to act and when to step back. They avoid unnecessary complexity. They don't impose solutions where they are not needed. Instead, they focus their effort where it genuinely improves outcomes. This balance is what separates contribution from control. There is also a long-term dimension to this principle. Short-term thinking asks, how do I benefit right now? Long-term thinking asks, what impact will this create over time? Those who consistently add value tend to focus on the second question. They understand that reputation, relationships, and opportunity are built through accumulated actions, not isolated wins. Eventually, this creates a reinforcing cycle. The more value you add, the more trust you earn. The more trust you earn, the more opportunities you receive. The more opportunities you receive, the more chances you have to add even greater value. Over time, this cycle compounds into sustained success. And this is where the Midas touch is fully revealed, not as a mysterious ability to turn things into gold, but as a consistent pattern of improvement wherever you go. It is not about transforming everything instantly. It is about leaving things better than you found them, repeatedly and reliably, because in the end, people may forget your words, your titles, or even your achievements, but they will always remember whether you made things better when you were there. And that, more than anything else, is what creates lasting value. Conclusion: the Midas touch is built, not given. If there is a single idea that ties all of these chapters together, it is this. The Midas touch is not a mystery reserved for a few, it is a pattern, built through deliberate behavior over time. It is easy to look at successful people and assume they possess something inaccessible, something innate, something beyond learning. But when you break down what they actually do, the illusion disappears. What remains is not magic, but structure, not luck, but repetition, not randomness, but disciplined consistency across multiple dimensions of thinking and action. Vision allows them to see opportunity early. Execution turns that vision into reality. Resilience keeps them moving after setbacks. Relationships amplify their reach. Adaptability turns limitations into leverage. Curiosity keeps them learning. A strong inner narrative shapes their decisions. Smart risk-taking helps them move through uncertainty. Timing determines when their actions land, and the commitment to adding value ensures that everything they touch improves over time. None of these traits work in isolation. They reinforce each other. Vision without execution is fantasy. Execution without resilience collapses under pressure. Relationships without value building become transactional. Risk without timing becomes waste. And curiosity without application becomes distraction. The strength of the Midas touch comes from the integration of all these elements into a single way of operating. What matters most is not perfection in any one area, but direction across all of them. This means you do not need to transform your entire life overnight. You do not need to master everything at once. In fact, attempting to do so often leads to frustration. Instead, progress comes from attention. Notice how you think, how you respond, and how you act. Then adjust gradually, refine repeatedly, improve continuously. Over time, these small adjustments accumulate. What once required effort begins to feel natural. What once felt uncertain becomes instinctive. Your decisions improve not because the world becomes simpler, but because you become more capable of navigating it. There is also an important shift that happens along the way. At first, success may feel like something you are trying to reach, a destination, a goal located somewhere in the future. But as these principles take root, success becomes less about arrival and more about process. It becomes the byproduct of how you operate, not a separate outcome you chase. This is the deeper meaning behind the idea of golden hands. It is not about turning everything into gold through chance or talent. It is about becoming someone who consistently creates value, someone whose presence improves outcomes, strengthens systems, and opens possibilities. And perhaps most importantly, it is about responsibility, because once you understand these patterns, success is no longer something that simply happens to you. It becomes something you participate in shaping. Your decisions matter more. Your habits matter more. Your consistency matters more. The advantage is not in knowing everything at once, but in applying what you know repeatedly and deliberately. In the end, the real transformation is not external, it is internal. You begin to see differently, think differently, and act differently. And over time, that difference compounds into results that once seemed out of reach, not because the world changed, but because you did.